Welcome, viewers, to another amazing time conversation. And I've got an amazing lady in the studio with us today. Her name is Dr. Naomi Adjepong. And she's going to be telling us a lot of wonderful stuff about herself, about the initiatives that she runs, about the school that she's also an operation director at. So I want you to stay tuned and focus. There's so much that we're going to learn. This channel is always for leaders, aspiring leaders, or people that are already in leadership. And always the guests that I bring have so much nuggets to give us that can improve our own leadership journey. So if you haven't subscribed to our channel, I want to encourage you to hit the subscription button and also hit notification so that whenever we upload a new video, you'll be the first to know. I also want to encourage you to share this message with your friends and family and let them come on board and watch this conversation with us. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and any other platforms that you may be logged onto. So without much ado, I'm going to tell you about the amazing lady today. Her name is Dr. Adjepong, and she is a mother. She's a wife. She's a wonderful daughter, because I'm sure if I'm talking to her parents, they're going to say that she's an amazing daughter. She also is the operation director for Alpha Beta. She's going to be telling us about Alpha Beta. She's also a director for Skills Up Africa. She's also going to be telling us a lot about that. And her current project, she is the co-founder of Emerge Leadership, which is based in the UK. And also she has been voted as one of the 40 most influential women in Ghana. And she's going to be telling us she's in that league with MPs, people that have been in leadership for so many years. Obviously, there's so much she brings to the table for her to be nominated and voted as one of the 40 most inspiring women in Ghana. Dr. Naomi, on this note, I want to welcome you to the leadership conversation.
Thank you very much for having me, Gertrude.
Thank you. Thank you for accepting the call. You guys have noticed that there are some people that I bring on here that I've known for quite a long time. And Dr. Naomi is one of those people that I've known for a very long time. I think if I cast my mind back, it's probably about 19 to 20 years now that we met. So along the conversation, you would hear how we met and where we were in our journey of life and where we are now. Dr. Naomi, on this note, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. Well, thank you for asking. A little bit more about myself. I don't really usually get asked to talk about myself, but if I should be pressed to say. So I'm a child of God, firstly, a daughter to two amazing parents. I think Gertrude mentioned that before. A wife to my wonderful husband, Ninanka, a mother to my truly amazing little humans, Nakoshi and Nikojo. But outside of, those are the most important things to me. But outside of that, I wear a lot of hats. I'm a trained medic. I'm an educator. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a leadership coach. I'm a strategist. I'm a leader in various different spaces. I'm a fellow of the African Leadership Initiative West Africa and a member of the Aspen Global Leadership Network. And I serve on a number of boards, including the Art Fund Data Bank and also at Alpha Beta Education Centers, which I'll talk more about later. My current role at the school is Director of Operations. It's a family-owned business. Started by my parents about 33 years ago. I run a couple of other organizations. I'm sure that will come up in the conversation as well. But I'm just me. I'm an extremely passionate person, especially passionate about changing the African story through the next generation. And a lot of what I do is geared towards that. I don't know if that's enough about myself. I grew up in Ghana. I had all my education in Ghana. Till I got to sixth form and I moved back to the UK. And I did medical school at the University of Manchester. And I moved from there to do my house job at the Royal Berkshire Hospital in Reading. And then I moved to Ghana. So I guess, wow. In the conversation, you'll dissect that.
Yeah, I know, but just to say, I think I've just got a burning question for you. How do you balance this whole thing, because you're wearing so many hats? And I think there's lots of people here that sometimes they don't want to even rise up to the leadership position that they've been called for. Some don't even want to rise up to the one position or two position they've been called for. And they make a number of excuses that, but I can't, but I'm busy, my hands are full doing this, my hands are doing that. And I don't think majority of them even wear the many multiple hats that you were wearing. How do you manage all of these things, and how are you juggling all of these things?
So of course it's not easy, time management is very important. Learning to say no is equally important, because sometimes, of course, different people have expectations of you. I always say that the 2 minutes that it takes to tell somebody no can save you, a lot of headaches in trying to do something and probably not even doing it well. So managing my time effectively is definitely something that I have had to do over the years, especially with more and more responsibility that I've had to take on.
And also, would you say that you should focus on your passion? Because I'm sure all the things that you are doing right now are things that you are passionate about, are things that probably comes natural to you, are things that are interconnected. So you are sticking within your core of interest, whereas some people can spread themselves too thin, find running up and down doing some of everything and ending up doing nothing. Would you say that that's right about my analysis of what you do?
Absolutely. I think that, doing things that are aligned with your passion is important, because you will be more motivated to do them instead of feeling so forced to do them. So you'll find that a lot of the things that I do are really all, in the same direction. There might be one or two that are outside of that. But of course, you can't do the same thing all the time. It's nice to have, some things that are outside of your regular work, to keep you balanced. But again, being able to understand and appreciate your time and your season. I'm a mother to two young children. So, that's something that I have to factor into everything that I do.
Everything.
I can't take on responsibilities that I can't commit to with two young children, but I also appreciate for me that it's a season. It's a season, it won't last forever. So during this season, I just have to try and make decisions that are in line with the season that I'm in.
I just want to say three things that I picked up from here. We need to learn to prioritize. We need to understand, follow your why. A lot of us deviate away from our why. Also, you've got to follow your passion. So I want you to put that in the comment section. My priorities, I have to set my priorities right. And from what Naomi is telling us is our priorities will change at different times. She says, look, I'm a mother of two young kids. They are my priority right now. So I need to make sure that everything that I respond to and everything that I'm going to do, I have to factor my children in. I cannot go, but I also understand that I'm in a season. I've been given a platform right now, a particular platform for a reason. So it is the balancing act. So prioritize. You need to know what your why is. You need to know what your passion is and begin to stick with that. Naomi, can I ask you, I know you are the operations director for Alpha Beta. Before we talk about your shifting from becoming a medical doctor, because when I met you almost 20 years ago, this was before you went to university. And I knew that you'd been accepted to go to university to do medicine. And at that time, all we talked about was you were going to do medicine. And we talked through all the journey and you were doing it and you really loved what you were doing. So before we come to why you shifted to become an educator, I just want us to look at the institution that you are now the operation director for. And I know you're trying to drive a vision that was started about 30 something years ago, but I know that you're also adding your own twist to it at this stage. Could you tell us about that?
Okay, so like I mentioned before, I moved back to Ghana just over 10 years ago, from a medical background, as you mentioned. And my family have owned the school since 1989. I think that for me, education has always been in the family. It's not something that I chose as my first line of career, but it's definitely something that has been around us all the time. My parents, as they're getting older, and I being the firstborn child as well, I thought that there was definitely some responsibility on me to at least try and understand how the business works. Because I do think that after all the investment that they've made in it, it'd be a shame for it to just be a one-generation business. I think that that's one of the biggest challenges we face in Africa. is not being able to establish businesses that will last for generations. They just sort of die out with the original owner. So it's, for me, it's something I'm passionate about. And so I can't allow it to happen on my own doorstep. And so, in coming back, it was a fairly easy transition to make. Although I have a medical background, I genuinely believe that, education is a means to an end. It's not an end in itself. Yeah. And so, having gathered all the skills that I was able to learn, at the University of Manchester, it was not a difficult transition, but it has certainly been a learning journey over the last 10 years. And I would say, one of the biggest things, as I mentioned, I'm passionate about is changing the African story through the next generation. So a lot of the work that we have done at Alpha Beta over the last, 7 to 10 years has been looking at, how do we change our curriculum? How do we change the way that we do things? How do we make sure that children are leaving us with the skills, the values, the knowledge that they need to be able to thrive and be successful, but not just to thrive and be successful and be global agents of change, no doubt, but also how do they fit into change in the African continent? So that's a lot of the work that we try and do, and 7 years ago, I worked with a team at the school to initiate the Idinkahina Leadership Program, which is a program that we run at our secondary school. And I'm really excited. This year is the first cohort. This is the inaugural class that will be graduating this year. So we're very excited about that. That will be in July. But over the years, even though that's the class that's done the full program, we've had other year groups that have done various numbers of years since we started. But the students who have left after doing the program have really amazed us, just in the way that they go on to shine in the various spaces they find themselves. So they'll go into university and, they will be commended for being further ahead than some of their other colleagues. And also they go on to, do projects and to really try and think about, how they can change the situations around them. So you'll have them going on to do projects, or they'll go on to occupy various leadership positions to try and change things wherever they are. And we're extremely proud of, the alumni, all our alumni, Alpha Beta alumni, definitely, but those that we have been more purposeful and intentional about over the last few years. We are really seeing results of that. And of course, with more and more investment and time in the program, we hope that we'll see a lot more of that. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, you have. So, I just want to put out there that you guys are not just going by the curriculum that most schools are going with. You are adding something else to the educational system and something else to the lives of the students that you are teaching, because you want them to go out. Because sometimes education is good, but what I've realized is that sometimes schools run a curriculum that doesn't fully equip someone to be a contributing member of their community. But then, so you guys are bringing practical knowledge, leadership skills. These are things that you don't get at secondary school level. But you guys are adding that, and you've brought that in to help the children to become better contributing members of society. And I've got to commend you guys for that, because I know how education system works here in England, and I must say that this is not a common trend. This is nothing that happens. And so I'm so grateful that you guys are doing that. And I'm sure that if we look back or we look forward 5-10 years from now, if you can evaluate, sometimes when you're doing something, you don't really see the outcome of it right now. But I'm sure if 5-10 years from now, when we go and evaluate, you will realize that those students that went through your program will be better contributing members of society and be able to project manage and task manage and improve the communities they're in better than someone that didn't get those practical tips and practical knowledge and mentoring that you guys are doing. So I just want to commend you and your parents for the amazing job that you were doing. I want to also ask you, I know you are director at Skills Up Africa. What is Skills Up Africa I want you to tell our audience what it's about. What were you thinking when you set this up, or what is the goals that you are trying to achieve? What is the vision of the whole thing?
All right. So Skill Up Africa is a new project that I started more recently. Still a lot of work going into it behind the scenes, but the idea behind Skill Up Africa is to have both online and offline center for adults to develop their personal and professional skills. What we're doing in school is great with young children, but we also recognize that there are a lot of people who are in an older, age bracket who still lack those skills. As you know, in Africa, we have a serious, youth bulge. As at 2019, there were 60% of Africa's population is under 25. And you know that the unemployment issues are great, poverty issues are great. But we genuinely believe that, with a little bit of inspiration and equipping and empowering, young people can really, achieve more. And so Skill Up Africa is really just targeted at, what sort of short courses can be provided for adults post-formal education to make them more productive and make them more, just basically give them the capacity to earn a sustainable livelihood. And I think for us in Ghana and the continent of Africa, that is what we really should be aiming for, because if we are not able to provide opportunities, no matter how small, for young people, then we're heading for major issues, especially if 60% of the population as at 2019 were under 25. Conceivably, if we don't do something intentional about it, for me, it's all about the intentionality and the modeling. How do we get a model that's sustainable and that is cheap enough? Because of course, the challenge with any of these things is affordability, because the target market are generally people who have little to no money to invest in this, or perhaps don't even see the importance. Because of course, you'll see young people walking around with a very expensive phone or very expensive, clothing and stuff, and perhaps they don't really see the importance of investing in themselves. So the question is, how can we get young people to understand that they can go that little bit further with just a little bit of investment? I mean, even in the space that I'm in, sometimes you see people's CVs and you wonder, this person probably go to church every day. I pray that God will give them a job. But if you look at their CV, you just wonder how they're going to, and sometimes it can be something very little. So I'm always very passionate about trying to guide young people. Sometimes they're making, of course, I mean, I'm not that old. I'm still under 40, but I still recognize that, sometimes just a little push in the right direction. Sometimes even just contacts, we live in a world where sometimes it's just, an email to somebody or a phone call to somebody can open a door for somebody, or even just pushing them in the right direction. I find that a lot of young people don't really know what they want to do. They don't know what they want to do, not because of any fault of their own, but more so because nobody has guided them in that direction, So even for us on the Eden Krahena Leadership Program, we start to have some of these career/higher education conversations much earlier. We certainly don't believe that, I think I've mentioned this phrase before, that education is a means to an end, not an end in itself. So we don't necessarily believe that there's a fixed career path that every young person should follow. We think that human beings should be equipped with skills that will allow them to take opportunities when they come up. Because jobs now, I mean, the jobs that we're seeing on the job market now did not exist 10 years ago. They didn't exist 15 years ago. We can't train young people now and say, oh, you'll be a lawyer. I mean, the lawyer and doctor and all that are the typical ones that in Africa people will push their kids with. But even other jobs, now robots are taking over, and so they tell us that things that involve human interaction are the things that probably people will get jobs in, like, nursing and, things that actually have to be done by a human being that involve caring. Because even now, look, teaching has taken, now that COVID has come, we've seen that teaching, has taken a whole different turn. And so, people can be learning online and one teacher can be teaching millions of people. What does this mean for teaching jobs in 10 years and 15 years time? And so these are all things for us. It's not about teaching them a career path, but it's about getting them equipped with the skills, the values and the attitude, because the attitude is half the battle as well. And so with Skill Up, we just hope that we can do that for an older age group as well.
That's amazing. I mean, one of the things that I am quite passionate about is equipping people with skills to enable them recognize opportunities. And I'm particularly can be a little bit frustrated, especially in this pandemic, where all people are seeing is problems. It's because of it. I think they just don't have the tools to be able to see opportunities. They've been sat on a particular side of the fence, and all they're focusing on is problems. I was listening to Bishop T.D. Jakes this morning, and he says that if all you've got in your hand is a hammer, you convert everything. All you see is a nail, because that's all you've got is a hammer, and everything you see is a nail, and you go smashing. So if you've got enough tools in your toolkit, then you will be able to see different things and how you can fix it. And I think we are in a technology and information revolution, but then we still have people that are so deprived of knowledge. I mean, we get CVs come through, and you're looking at it, it's a one-liner CV. And I'm just thinking, seriously, could you not even do your research? People come for interviews, and I ask the question, what do you know about us? And they have not got a clue. So again, it's about these little things. And these things, I don't think anybody's going to teach you in school. So these short courses, this is what they will do, and they will help you to equip you to open your eyes. I mean, one of the things that I was looking at is change your position, change where you were sat, move from where you were sat on the fence. And if you can change your position, you can change your outlook of life, you can change your perspective of life. But some people are just sat in this particular space, and they're just seeing this one vision and think that that's it. So thank you so much. I think that what you guys are doing there is one of the best things that people need, especially in this season, because there's so much going on. A lot of the things that we were used to is now going out the window. Tradition is going. And so now we are looking for people that are creative, they are innovative, and not creative or innovative because they're special, but because they built up enough skills enables them to be able to evolve and be able to change and be able to transition into what the world is offering right now. So I think that's a great thing that you guys are doing. You talk about the next generation. You are very interested in the next generation being the solution. What do you mean by the next generation being the solution to Africa? Are you giving up on this generation?
Well, I haven't given up on this generation, but I do feel that a lot of the challenges we have as a continent are related to our value system, perhaps. Maybe in some ways, our value system is also driven by a bit of a poverty mindset, maybe, if I should put it that way. Greed and corruption are depriving us of the progress that we should have seen as a continent. I don't think that it's not that we're not capable. I mean, you have Africans in other parts of the world doing so many amazing things. They have had the opportunity to be enlightened and are able to do those things. Are we really trying to enlighten the next generation so that they can also take advantage of those opportunities? It's a big question that we need to ask ourselves. So I don't think it's not that we're capable. If you think about it, a lot of our leaders have traveled. So it's not that they don't know. They don't know the right thing to do, or they don't know what we need. I don't think that's what the problem is. But the mindset, the values that they're operating with, perhaps are not what they ought to be operating with. And so for me, teaching a child, the Bible talks about teaching a child when they're young, and I genuinely believe that this is something that, we should be doing. Because if you're training young children from a very young age, what it is to even do the right thing when no one is watching. Integrity is a huge part of, this story, which needs a lot of work, because we need to be able to teach people that at the end of the day, it's not only about you. It's not about you and what you can amass for yourself or your family, but it's about doing the right thing. whether somebody is watching or not. If we were doing the right thing, some of the resources that are channeled into people's pockets and would be used to provide goods and services for the greater good of society. As we are here now, healthcare is not great, your education is not great, your infrastructure is not great. And it's not really down to just a lack of resource. If we were more efficient and more prudent with the way and manner in which we're using what we have, we would definitely be further forward than we are now. So I think for me, the next generation. I mean, you could try and save this generation, but I don't know how. It's not an easy job, because as it stands now, people are quite ingrained in the way in which they do things, and we definitely need to, as Romans 12:2 tells us, we need to renew our minds. That's the only way that we're going to move forward.
I think you bring me back to something that I'm equally passionate about. Is there a role that the church should play? Because for me personally, I believe that the church has a big role to play in this whole change and this whole new mindset that we want to have. Because I'm just saying this from Ghana's perspective. If you go to Ghana on a Sunday, the whole churches are full. Churches are maxed to the brim. And yet, when you go from Monday to today, we are talking about corruption. We're talking about lack of integrity. We're talking about unaccountable people. And yet the very people are the people that are in the church on a Sunday, max to the brim. Majority of them are back in institutions, back in organization, wanting to have the kind of conversations that we are having. So why are we not able to cause a change? And I think that, are we taking church? Are we saying that church should stay in church, or are we taking what we learn, the principles that we are learning in church, into our workplaces? And are we as Christians or church folks supposed to talk more about these things? Because the only way we can change these things, the only way we can change mindset, it's about the messages that we are preaching in church, and also ensuring that the people are actually taking these messages out of church and taking it to where they are. Because when you come to Africa, I think we are religion rich. And a lot of religion talks about integrity, obedience, accountability, all of that. So why are we religion rich, but we are poor when it comes to morals in terms of building an economy, morals in terms of building an institution, looking after institution, looking after my neighbor, being supportive of my neighbor, helping one another? Why the gap? But I just thought I would put this question out there. Because it's something that's my concern, and the few followers that I have, or the people that follow me, I do a lot of leadership and business teaching, but I always make sure that those teachings are grounded from the Word of God. They're grounded from the Bible, because I think that if we can build our leadership journey and our business journey and ministry on the true foundation of God, then I think half the problems that we are facing, we will not be facing them. So I'm just putting this out there, people, that majority of us that are Christian and religious people, let us make sure that we are taking it out into the workplace, taking it out into our economy, and taking it out into the society in which we find ourselves. Thank you very much. But also, I just also want to say, the current generation, there's still so much that we can do. Because maybe we can all take up the mantle like Dr. Adjepong is doing, and then be passionate about some of the things and teach the young generation and teach ourselves or change our own mindset. So she's not really giving up on us. There's so much that we can do. I know it says that it's difficult to teach an old dog new tricks, but I certainly believe that I have been taught new tricks. I have had to teach myself new tricks. So I think we still have a role to play, and there's so much that we can do as well. I know that you are big on training, mentoring of young people, mainly in leadership. I think you've already told us about the Adinkra training. What other things do you think that as leaders we should be doing for the younger generation? Because I know you're big on giving back, and I equally respect that we should give back. What else do you think as leaders we can be doing?
Okay, so I mean, there's so many things that you can do. Once you have experience and you have some exposure, there's definitely something you can teach other people. I'm very much of the view that we rather teach a man to fish rather than giving them fish. I think that there's always a tendency that we think we can save somebody by giving them a handout. And I don't think that this strategy has ever worked for Africa, and I don't think it will ever work. Because you give a handout, it's eaten that day, it's consumed, and then that's it. The people stay the same. So my encouragement really to anybody who, wants to be part of the solution to our nation and our continent's challenges is to really think about doing something more sustainable, invest in things that are sustainable, like education, like teaching people skills, like teaching people the right values and attitudes. Like at the very least, you can mentor somebody. One of the things that we do with our program is we send children on work experience right from, even from primary year 4, year 5, we're encouraging some level of work experience where they go out into the world of work, and they, learn just what does it mean to be an adult in a work environment, and just meeting different people and seeing different people with different careers and just getting some inspiration from that. So even if you can't do anything else, you can offer internships to young people. This is a very big challenge in this part of the world. And now because of technology, you can even offer virtual internships. There's a number of organizations that you can do it through, so you don't necessarily have to do all the work yourself. You can just offer and say, okay, my company can offer a virtual internship, or I'm willing to speak at an assembly, or I'm willing to, speak to a group of students as a guest speaker. There are little things that you can do that will really impact young people beyond sort of giving them something. Of course, being able to give things. But again, when you're investing money or you're investing things, try and invest in something that is sustainable. So something that is going to keep yielding returns rather than something that is just going to be a one-off thing is consumed and then it's done. So I think there's so many things that we can do. And of course, adding our voices to what is going on the ground as well. Yeah. Sometimes there is a bit of a culture of silence where, everybody sees what's going on, but nobody wants to comment on it. And, I think that the more we start to recognize what the challenges are, maybe not so much as criticizing, but also, sort of suggesting potential solutions. I think we all can be quite quick to point fingers at who is causing the problem. But the question is, what are we doing to try and solve the problem? And so, sometimes Africa has big challenges. No single person is going to solve all of it. The big problems, but what you can do is to create micro pockets of change wherever you can, and if everybody does that, hopefully we'll go forward.
Yeah, I think I like that. He said micro pockets of change. If everyone works at brightening the corner where they are, can you imagine? Everywhere's going to be brightening up then. So let us focus on what we can do. And I like what you said about the sustainable investment into people, not just the one-off, because we are used to giving. You see corporations will give and go and sow into orphanages or go and sow into one-off things that feeds the person for a week, and then that's it, or put clothes on somebody's. I'm not saying all of those things are not good, they are great, but then there's more that we can give, because a lot of us have got transferable skills. We have gained a lot of experience over the years that you can invest into someone and it will go a long way. That is something that it can never be taken away, whereas the clothes are going to get worn out. The food is going to, you're going to finish the food. But then if I've given you some mentoring, or if I've invested my time in you to teach you certain things, then that will become a lifelong skills. Also, I think people should make themselves available, because or people should also appreciate, because have you noticed that it can be quite difficult if you want to mentor people? People are so used to over the years getting handouts that they also don't want to know. They don't want to know about how can I fish. They just want to continue to beg for alms and receive little alms here and there. And people make a living of it. And for the rest of their life, that's just how they want to live. So the mindset of some of the people as well. But we've got to help change the mindset of the people that are on the receiving end, just as well as help to change the mindset of the people that have been giving and feeding into that negative mindset all of these years. So leaders, please, can we try and give sustainable investment into the lives of people? I listened to one of your conversations, and you were talking about helping change the narrative of Africa. How can we help change? I think we've touched on a few bits already, but how can we change the narrative of Africa? Or how do you, in your own little way, I know that, as you said, not one person can solve the problem of Africa, but in your own little way, what do you think we can do to change the narrative of Africa?
Well, I mean, what we can do is, I think I've said it quite a bit already, but I guess being a little less greedy and being a bit more creative in how we solve our problems will definitely go a long way. We're dealing with a lot of problems, a lot of big problems. And so some creativity and efficiency will definitely go a long way for us. We are more than capable. You know, we have what it takes. We have the resources. We have the human resources. But you know, if we even just solve corruption, you know, we'll be much further forward. But I think that just to even recognize for leaders to recognize that this youth bulge is not going to go away, you know, because as you know, as let's say that there are little changes in healthcare, you know, delivery, and so infant mortality is decreasing, etc. And so, you know, you have people are still having large numbers of children. So, if we don't come up with a creative and sustainable solution to this youth, it can be seen as a challenge, but it can also be seen as it has huge potential if it's harnessed the right way. If we're not intentional about creating opportunities for young people, in the next 10, 15, 20 years, I'm very scared about what will happen on this continent, because we already started seeing, you know, the crime rates going up. Because if I can't find a job, what else am I supposed to do? You know, if I can't get an opportunity to do something, what else am I supposed to do? And, you know, it started happening, you know, in Ghana, there are recent stories coming out about murders and robberies and all of these sort of things. I mean, you could argue that it's worse in other places, but that's not the point. The point is that if we don't find productive ways to engage young people, and people are getting more smart with the crime because technology has increased, right? They're seeing, you know, better ways to rob people, essentially. They don't have to even go far to do that. In Ghana in particular, now we have free SHS, that's free senior high school. What will happen is that if we're not careful, we'll put hundreds of thousands of young people through senior high school. And when they finish that, what do they do? Because the number of students that are going through senior high school, they're not going to all be able to go to university, you know, for various reasons. There's not enough places, their parents might not be able to afford it, etc. What are we doing to make sure that there are alternatives for these young people? You know, because they're that little bit more educated, you know, than their counterparts would have been if we didn't have free secondary school education. If you're not careful, that could be used in a not so good way against the society. So I think for me, the changing of the narrative, you know, there's no simple solution, but each and every one of us, you know, will need to think about how we can change the narrative. And I'm so excited with some of the stories that we're seeing coming off the continent, you know. Again, like I talked about micro pockets of change, you know, everybody needs to brighten their corner. And, you know, the more you can see now, there's more and more interest building up in Africa from, you know, from the West, from Asia, etc. How are we harnessing that, you know, to our advantage? So there's a lot of opportunity, but we need to really think about how we make good use of that so that we can also move forward as a continent.
I mean, again, you see, I was invited to have a conversation on a business platform, and they were saying that the global supply chain has been affected, and how are some of the ways that we can overcome it. And I said, some of the ways that we can overcome it is now people are looking for multiple supply chains. So they're not just relying on China, or also we see that there's a shift in people no longer wanting cheap, environmentally unfriendly goods. And I said, one of the ways that we can overcome this is countries beginning to open industries and create products and services within the country for themselves, so you don't rely on exports, because that's one way that we can do it. And once you do something like that, you begin to create employment within your own country and for your own people. So I think as you said, there isn't one way to be able to answer this question, but each and every one should be interested in changing the narrative of the African story. People may say that I can't contribute, but I don't know what to do, but we all can do something. What advice would you give to someone who is still in the diaspora, but then wanting to be able to invest in Africa, wanting to be able to help, wanting to be able to be part of the conversation, or want to do something to change the narrative, but they're not ready to make the whole transition like you did? What advice? Is there a role for them to still play? And one that you said, the whole virtual experience is a way that people can still contribute. Anything else that you can add to that?
Absolutely. I mean, the thing that, like I said, there are so many things going on the continent. So you don't necessarily have to start something from scratch. You can find things that are going on the ground and invest financially. One of the biggest challenges that we have in this part of the world as well is funding. So a lot of people have good ideas, great ideas, but even just to get the money to push it forward is a challenge. Of course, our currency is quite weak. So even if people abroad give you a little bit of money, it can go a long way. So I think, donating financially, but also to projects that are sustainable. So I think I mentioned this before, not just about handouts. So look at some of the things that people are doing. And of course, it depends on what you're passionate about. If you're passionate about sports, you can find organizations that are pursuing that. If you're passionate about education, if you're passionate about, orphans. I mean, even with orphanages, I would suggest that if you're donating, you donate to something that is going to provide, lasting returns. So rather than just giving clothes or whatever. But those are also good. They are also things that are needed. But definitely, funding is one of them. Providing virtual, you can mentor people now without being on the ground, because now, people can join mentoring online. You can, offer other services and, other opportunities. Or even if you don't have funding yourself, you can also look for funding opportunities, because sometimes people just don't know what's out there. You might find yourself in a position where maybe your company is ready to sponsor things. Information is key. And that's one of the things that we also don't have on the continent. So if you have contacts, you have networks, you can also leverage on those to help projects that are, doing all the right things. I definitely say do your due diligence as well when you are ready to support projects. Try and support projects, especially ones that have a good track record, because at least you know that when you're investing into something that is going to yield some level of return.
So what narrative or what conversation does Dr. Adjepong want to be a part of? Because, I mean, you explained earlier, we can't be a part of everything. I think basically I'm trying to get what your passion is. What conversations do you want to be involved in? What narrative do you want that when you hang up your boots and go so many years from now, what would you want us to have said that you were most instrumental?
All right. So for me, simply, it's just that we need to change the way that we're educating young Africans. Times have changed. The world has changed. In Africa, our education system is not only outdated and needs upgrading, but it needs to be customized to our African problems. Sometimes we're trying to copy education.
West.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily work for us, because our problems are different, and I guess let me just take it back to the same youth bulge issue I'm talking about. If we're going to wait to put every one of those young people through the full, formal schooling system, put them through university for them to be able to earn a sustainable living, it's not going to work. You're just dealing with such huge volumes of people that is not going to work. So we need to find a way to educate, fast track. We need to fast track their education, because of course, not everybody is going to be a lawyer, a doctor, a pilot. So do we really need to follow what is classed as a traditional education system?
Of education.
How can we give people the basics that they need, right? And then be able to give them some skills that they can use to earn a sustainable living. I think that the focus should be more on the end game than the process, because we don't have that luxury of time. And of course, there are so many careers that can be done or let me not necessarily say careers, but there are jobs that people can easily do without having gone through a formal, the full formal education system. And
yeah.
the faster we think about those on this continent, the better it will be for us.
Yeah.
Like I said,
Yeah.
we're heading towards major problems if we don't think about it. And it's all ours. We can't just say we're leaving this to the government, because at the end of the day, when the problems come, they're gonna hit all of us. It's not just going to hit, it's not going to be the government's problem. When the crime rates go up, it affects all of us. So we can't all just sit by unconcerned and say, well, this problem will sort itself out, because it really won't. So that's what you're asking, what I'd like to be remembered for. And it's changing this education space and making sure that young people are equipped. They're inspired, they're equipped, and they're empowered to be able to change the African story. That's my hope.
That's amazing. I like the bit that you said. I mean, I've never heard it said this way, that the African problem is unique in itself. It's different from every other continent. So why are we using educational system that's for other continents and every other place to educate us? And our problems are not being solved. So the education system has to be tailor made to what we've got. And then, as you said, it has to be revised. So many different strategies have to be used at different time. Like you're talking about the youth bulge that we've got at the minute. You've just given a strategy that should be used right now, or multiple other strategies. We should be thinking about those strategies. How can we implement a different strategy, a hands-on approach, or a mentoring system, or professional qualifications? Maybe those are things that could help people and get them into skilled employment and things, rather than expecting everyone to go through a university, go for 4 years. And when you talk to people, that's all they think. And people think that if I go for a 4-year education, I'm going to come back and get a job. But they're still going through a 4-year education, as you said, that hasn't prepared them to solve the problem that is within the African continent where they are going to be working. So again, people are coming out, even though they've been educated, they're coming out and not really educated for where they're going to be working. I mean, like, I'm sure when both of us did our degrees and a master's and stuff, again, the kind of assignments and the kind of coursework that we were doing are coursework that were pertaining to the industries that we were finding ourselves in the industries, that the countries that we're going to be working. Those were the coursework that I was doing, because I'm here in England. These are the things that I'm interested in, and that's what it was. I wasn't being taught about what's happening in Africa. I wasn't being taught about what's happening in Ghana and how I can go and manage Ghana's problem. So why should Ghana be learning something else that is not going to help them solve their problems? Hence why when people finish, they want the places for where they learned about, and not necessarily places where they're going to be utilizing their skills. And I think one final question I want to ask you is, how can we stop the youth? Because I know we still got this whole thing where youth still feeling that going to the West is the best thing for me. What can we do to retain people to stay in the African continent, help the African continent? What are some of the things that we can do, or government can do, or those of us in leadership can do to help? Because this is not just a government process, it's each and every one of us can do. And I'm sure one of the things you're going to be saying is make the economy a better place and people will stay. But what else can we do from mine and your level as leaders, and not necessarily in government? What can we do to help the people that are within our circle, the people that are within our sphere of influence, to remain where they are?
So, I mean, I guess it goes back to the same thing, providing more opportunities on the continent. Because why are people, feeling compelled to leave? People feel compelled to leave mostly for economic reasons and a lack of opportunity. If people are willing to stow away on a plane just for an opportunity to get to a place where they can have more opportunities, then it's really sad. There are people crossing the desert and risking their lives just to get to a place where they can get more opportunities. And I don't think that most of those people they wouldn't go if there was something even small for them to, because I don't think that they're not going to risk their life because when they go, even the jobs that they get are not, amazing jobs.
No.
So really and truly, if you could provide a small opportunity for them, to be able to make a sustainable living for themselves and their families, I don't think that people would be risking their lives. There are some countries on the African continent, where you don't really see many of their citizens when you go to England or you go to the US, because probably they're happy where they are, and they're okay.
They're content where they are, yeah.
Yes. So I don't think that it takes a lot, but it takes an intentional effort to make sure that people have some level of comfort and some level of decency, because the reality on the ground is that we don't have jobs. The unemployment problem is huge. And even the jobs that exist, people are not equipped to be able to take them. Yeah. So until we are more intentional in our efforts, even changing the way that we educate at the university level to make sure that people can fulfill the few jobs that are available, will make a difference. Because if I'm looking for a job and I'm not getting it, of course, if somebody gives me an opportunity to, go to Italy, go to the UK, go to the US, to even go and do a menial job, I'm a graduate, but because things are hard, I can't get a job. Even if it's to go and work in a menial job, they will still be willing to do it because that's the only option that they have. And so for me, it's just the efforts, making sure that, we provide opportunities. Of course, there are the bigger things that, people will look at, things are not easy, but some level of effort in just trying to make sure that basic structures are available, from education to healthcare to housing, that people are, at least, even if they work hard, they're able to get onto this ladder. I think that it will definitely help to keep people on the continent.
And just to also, I think just to add on to a bit onto what you're saying is, if only government could make the whole bureaucracy and the red tapes of coming to set up something in Africa, set up a business, because I talk to people time and time again. I've seen people time and time again who emigrated to Ghana or emigrated somewhere else, and they wanted to really set up business. They really wanted to invest in the continent. And the amount of bureaucracy and red tapes was just so much that whatever little money they came with, it was just wasted on and paying their way around and got nowhere. And they had no other option than to run back. And I see people, that happen to people all the time. So maybe government, which is what you're saying, it is a whole partnership. It is a whole, everyone should be involved in this. A lot of people are really happy just to have the conversation and come up with opinions about what can be done, but they're not really ready to walk the walk. And so from every bit of what you've been telling us is, it's not enough to just talk the talk. We must walk the walk. And yes, we cannot do everything. We cannot solve all the problems, but each and every one of us leaders have something to do. We've got a little role that we can play. There's something little that we can do. Choose a sector, choose an industry, choose a section where you're going to add your voice and leave your footprint. Because if we all end up doing this, I feel that the world and the whole African continent as a whole, because again, I think we are narrowing this down to the African continent, because we're both passionate about the African continent, it will become a better place for each and every one of us. And a lot of the things that we see, the problems will be going down. I also want to call on Christians on this, because again, both of us are Christians. We understand what God says in the Bible. We understand that if people are accountable, if people are following the principles of the Bible, and people are following what God is saying and know that they're going to be accountable at the end of the day, then we will do much more. We're like the people with the talent. Jesus said a son was going and gave talents to his individual 7. One had 1, one had 2, and the other had 5. And when he came back, the one that had 5 had multiplied it and got 10. The one that he gave 2 to had multiplied it and got 4. But the one that had a 1 had buried it and had done nothing. Each and every one of us have a talent. I want to say each and every one of us has got a talent, and we must use that talent. We must use it effectively. We must use it effectively. And the more you use it, the better you're going to become. So any leader that's listening to the two of us, we are talking for the African continent. We want to see it be a better place. We want to see the narrative change. And there is so much that you and I can do. Let's not fold our arms and wait for government. You and I are part of this journey, part of this transition, part of this story. And we can see a lot of things happen. Dr. Naomi, one final thought. I know one of the things, you are an entrepreneur as well. And one of the things that I've got, one of the group of people that I've got are business leaders. In this pandemic, what 2 things are you saying that as an entrepreneur I have learned and I want to pass on to someone?
That's an interesting question. It's been a very stressful year for entrepreneurs, I have to be honest. What have I learned? For me, a lot of resilience, for us in the education sector. It's been very difficult, just trying to get by, because in private education, people have struggled with the concept of paying for virtual education. And this is something that's happened all over the world. Not so much a problem when it's funded by the government, but when people have to take money out of their own pockets to pay for it, it's been difficult. So, a lot of resilience you need as a business leader, because, you can get dragged, to very low points, and just to be able to pick yourself up and adapt, a lot of adaptation has had to take, because, with the current situation, adaptability has been key, being able to change what you're offering to suit the present need. So you can't just say, oh, well, this is what I have, if it's not going to work, then forget it. Your business survival is at stake. So if you have to change your model, you have to change your model. And it means that you're going to be able to really think hard on your feet, because you don't have time. At the time that you're having to change model and transition, it's a spur of the moment decision. So I guess just those two things, being resilient and being adaptable, very, very important. And now we have, with this experience as well, hopefully nothing will take us by surprise in the future, because I think for many businesses, we're comfortable and they know what they know, they do what they do, and they do it well. But nobody, absolutely nobody was prepared for this. Some industries are still struggling more than others. But being adaptable and resilient, you see it in other industries. There are planes that are flying to nowhere. I don't know if you've seen that. The airline industry is flying planes to nowhere. And it's all about adapting to.
Adapting, I mean, I was telling a group of people yesterday that you've got the drive-through cinemas here in England. So you've got the Lunar Cinema, where you can watch the movie from the comfort of your own car, still get your popcorn and drink and ice cream, sit in your car and watch it on the big screen. They've had to evolve. You've got Deliveroo, you've got the fresh food companies, you've got the restaurants that were able to quickly evolve and offer delivery services. So people have had to adapt. And also it's the speed. You said something about speed. A lot of people are waiting. They're playing a waiting game. Let us wait and see. Let us wait and see. Let us wait and see before you're the last person to market, and you've lost all your customers because they've shifted to that person that moved very quickly. And resilience, sometimes people are not resilient enough, or they're just focusing on the problem. Oh, we've got a problem, and they're not ready, they're not resilient, and they're not ready to adapt quickly and everything. So thank you very much. Resilience, people. She says resilience. She's gone on to say adaptability, be ready for change, and also speed to market. These are important things that you should be ready to do. Transition, pivot to wherever things are going. What are the trends? What are your customers looking for? What are your customers complaining about? How can you solve the problem of the customers and do it quickly, and you will be able to maintain your business. So business leaders, you were not left out on this one. Thank you very much, Dr. Adjepong, and thank you so much for accepting to come and talk to us. And I believe that you have unpacked so much knowledge and information onto us. So people, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, I want to invite you to subscribe to the channel. Also hit the notification button, because we've always got great thought leaders coming to talk to us and giving us some golden nuggets that will help us shape our own leadership journey or our business journey. So Dr. Adjepong, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much for having me.